Liam was only 13, but already the world felt too heavy on his small shoulders. His mother worked long shifts at the hospital, often leaving him alone in their cramped apartment. On nights when loneliness pressed in, he sneaked onto the late-night train, riding its endless loops around the city. The train, with its rhythmic clatter and fluorescent hum, was his refuge. That night, the city outside was alive with lights, neon signs glowing, people hurrying along sidewalks, the distant wail of sirens. Liam pressed his forehead against the cold window, watching the world blur past. His backpack, filled with a couple snacks, and his old phone, rested on his lap like a shield. He told himself he'd stay awake, but his eyelids grew heavier with every passing mile. Just a short nap, he whispered to no one, his voice swallowed by the hum of the train. Little did he know that nap would carry him somewhere no map could ever show, into a century he had only read about in history books. Liam stirred when the train jolted roughly on the tracks. His neck ached from the awkward angle of sleep. Rubbing his eyes, he blinked at the window. Expecting to see skyscrapers and streetlights, he froze. Gone were the glowing billboards and rushing traffic. Instead, he saw endless fields, dotted with wooden fences and grazing horses. His heart raced. He sat upright, eyes darting around the train. It wasn't the same sleek subway car anymore. The seats were wooden benches, the lights were brass lamps flickering dimly, and smoke curled faintly through the air. Men in wool coats and women in bonnets filled the car, speaking in quiet tones he barely understood. A conductor in a navy coat walked down the aisle, tipping his hat politely to the passengers. When his eyes landed on Liam's sneakers and hoodie, he gave a puzzled but gentle smile. "Welcome aboard, son," he said with a thick accent. "Next stop, 1847. Liam's blood ran cold. "No, no, no, no!" Liam muttered under his breath, scrambling to his feet. His sneakers squeaked on the wooden floor, drawing stares from nearby passengers. He turned in circles, looking for a glowing emergency exit, a familiar sign, anything. But everything was wrong. The people's clothing, the smell of coal smoke, the steady hiss of steam from the engine, it felt too real, too sharp, too alive to be a dream. A little girl with bouncing curls tugged her mother's sleeve and pointed at Liam. "Mama, look! His shoes are funny." The mother hushed her, casting Liam a suspicious glance. Desperate, Liam pulled out his phone. The screen lit up, but there was no signal, no Wi-Fi, not even the faintest trace of connection, just a glowing rectangle of useless comfort. His chest tightened. The air felt too thin. "This can't be happening," he whispered. His knees wobbled as if the floor beneath him might vanish. He had fallen asleep in 2025 and woken up nearly 2 centuries earlier. Before Liam could collapse, a hand touched his shoulder. He flinched and turned to see an elderly man with kind eyes and silver hair beneath a worn hat. The man's voice was calm, steady. "You're far from home, aren't you, boy?" Liam couldn't speak, only nod. The man introduced himself as Mr. Whitaker, a schoolteacher traveling to a nearby town. "You look lost," he said gently. From his satchel, he pulled out a hunk of bread and offered it. Liam hesitated, then took a bite. It was coarse, rough, nothing like the soft loaves from his grocery store, but it grounded him. "You'll need strength," Mr. Whitaker said. His eyes lingered with curiosity, but no judgment. For the first time, Liam realized this might not be some strange dream. If he couldn't find a way back, he'd have to survive here, wherever or whenever here was. When the train screeched to a stop, Liam followed Mr. Whitaker outside. The air was crisp, tinged with wood smoke and the earthy smell of horses. Cobblestone streets stretched before him, lined with crooked wooden houses. Market stalls bustled with women selling apples, children carrying buckets of water, men hauling firewood. It felt like walking into a painting, yet beneath the lively chatter, there was something else. Faces worn with fatigue, clothing patched and frayed, children's stomachs thin with hunger. Mr. Whitaker noticed Liam's wide eyes. "Life here isn't easy," he said softly, "but we endure." Liam shivered. Back home, he had grumbled about slow Wi-Fi and cold pizza. Here, survival meant hauling water, chopping wood, fighting off hunger. Comfort was a luxury no one could afford. He realized with a shiver he was utterly unprepared for this world. Mr. Whitaker led Liam to a worn brick building with cracked windows, an orphanage. Inside, children sat on rough benches, sewing, scrubbing, or mending clothes too large for their frames. Their laughter rang, but their eyes carried stories of loss. The matron, a stern woman with calloused hands, eyed Liam suspiciously. "Another stray?" "He needs shelter," Mr. Whitaker replied firmly. The matron sighed but nodded. "One more won't make a difference." That night, Liam lay on a straw mattress, listening to the whispers and laughter of boys his age. Despite the drafty air and thin blankets, they still joked and teased one another. Their joy in the midst of scarcity left him baffled. He turned onto his side, ashamed of the times he had complained about his boring life back home. Compared to this, he had lived like a king. Among the orphans, Liam grew close to Thomas, a wiry boy with a mischievous grin and eyes too old for his age. Thomas whispered stories after lights out about stealing apples to survive before the orphanage took him in. "It's not stealing if you're starving," Thomas argued with a grin. "It's living." Liam thought of the fridge at home, always stocked, even if it wasn't filled with his favorite snacks. Hunger, for him, had been a temporary annoyance. For Thomas, it was a shadow that followed him everywhere. That night, Liam remembered the single candy bar in his backpack. It was probably the last taste of his own time he would ever have. He broke it in half and gave a piece to Thomas. Thomas's eyes widened. "Sweetness," he gasped, chewing slowly, savoring every bite. He nearly cried. Liam swallowed hard, realizing just how much a simple bite could mean. The next day, Mr. Whitaker invited Liam to the schoolhouse. It was a single room with wooden desks and a cracked slate board. Children of all ages sat crowded together, scratching chalk letters. Thomas struggled, his brow furrowed as he tried to sound out words. Liam sat beside him, guiding his finger along the letters. "Like this," he whispered, breaking it into sounds. Thomas's eyes lit up when he got it right. Mr. Whitaker smiled at Liam. "You're good at this." For the first time in months, Liam felt useful. Back home, school had been a chore, something to endure. But here, in a world where knowledge was rare and precious, helping someone learn felt powerful. He thought of his mother, who had begged him to take education seriously. For the first time, he understood why. Winter crept in, sharp and merciless. The orphanage grew colder, the air filled with coughing. Blankets were thin, food scarcer than ever. One night, Liam woke to hear Thomas shivering violently, his breath ragged. The matron touched his forehead and whispered, "Fever." Panic gripped the room. Everyone knew sickness could spread fast, and without medicine, it could be deadly. Liam sat by Thomas, holding his damp hand. His friend's lips trembled as he whispered, "Don't. Leave me." Tears burned in Liam's eyes. Back home, a fever meant a trip to the pharmacy, maybe a few days off school. Here, it meant a child's life could be stolen overnight. For the first time, Liam understood how fragile life really was. Mr. Whitaker returned with a tiny vial of bitter-smelling tonic. "This may help, Thomas," he said gravely, "but we must ration it. Other children are sick too." Liam's hands shook as he held the vial. Every drop was precious. If he gave it all to Thomas, others might die. If he divided it, Thomas might not survive. His mother's words echoed in his memory. True love is sacrifice. With a trembling breath, Liam split the medicine carefully, making sure each child received a drop. When Thomas weakly swallowed his share, Liam prayed it would be enough. Days later, Thomas's eyes fluttered open, his fever broken. He was weak, but alive. Liam buried his face in his blanket, tears spilling silently. For the first time in his life, he realized doing the right thing often meant choosing the harder path. Spring arrived slowly, though the cold still clung to the air. Mr. Whitaker called Liam aside one afternoon. His eyes looked heavy, as though carrying years of quiet sorrow. "Would you write for me?" he asked softly. From his satchel, he pulled out a piece of paper, rough and yellowed at the edges, and a small pot of ink. Paper was precious here, every sheet a treasure. "To whom?" Liam asked, though he already sensed the answer. "My daughter," Whitaker replied. His voice faltered. "She works in a mill 2 towns away. I may never see her again." Liam dipped the pen, carefully scratching out the words as Mr. Whitaker dictated. His old-fashioned sentences spoke of love, pride, and hope. Liam's handwriting, neat but modern, stood out strangely on the page. When they finished, Whitaker folded the letter and held it to his chest. "Perhaps it will reach her," he whispered. "If not, at least I've spoken my heart." Liam thought of his own mother, who was alive, though distant in another century. Guilt pricked his chest. He had taken her presence for granted. Whitaker's letter was a reminder. Tomorrow was never promised. Though spring teased the horizon, the tail of winter bit back hard. Snow piled against doors, food stores dwindled to crumbs, and firewood was rationed. The orphanage grew colder each day, their breath rising like fog in the dormitory at night. Liam worked alongside the boys, gathering firewood with blistered hands. The axe was heavy, the wind brutal, but he kept going. Hunger gnawed at his stomach constantly. He thought about the times he had whined about soggy cereal or bland dinners back home. Those complaints now felt shameful. At night, the children huddled together beneath thin blankets. Thomas, still recovering from his illness, whispered, "You're stronger than you think." Liam didn't feel strong. His arms ached, his stomach growled, but he realized strength wasn't about muscles. It was about carrying on when quitting seemed easier. That was the lesson this century carved into his bones. At last, the snow melted, and the village celebrated the first harvest with a spring festival. It was simple. Fiddles played lively tunes, fresh bread baked from new flour, and children danced barefoot in the mud. For the first time in months, Liam laughed freely. Thomas tugged him into the dancing circle, and though Liam's sneakers slipped awkwardly in the dirt, the children cheered. For a brief moment, he wasn't a stranger from another world. He was just a boy, alive, laughing, moving with the rhythm of life. He bit into warm bread, its sweetness filling his mouth. It wasn't candy or pizza, but it was joy. As fiddlers played under the fading sun, Liam realized something powerful. Happiness didn't depend on gadgets or luxury. These people had almost nothing, yet their smiles were wider than anyone he knew back home. Maybe joy was not about what you had, but who you shared it with. Days later, while exploring near the edge of the village, Liam stumbled upon something strange. Hidden beneath vines was an old railway tunnel, crumbling with age. Unlike the rest of the town, it felt different. He stepped closer, brushing away moss from the stone arch. A faint hum echoed from within, like the quiet throb of electricity. His pulse quickened. He walked inside, and the air shifted. Colder, charged, almost humming against his skin. The tunnel stretched into darkness, but deep within, he felt a strange pull, as if the stones themselves were calling to him. This wasn't just an abandoned path, it was something more. His breath caught. Could this tunnel be a doorway, the way back to his own time? Yet fear coiled in his chest. If he left, he might never see Thomas or Mr. Whitaker again. The thought twisted his heart into knots. That night, Liam couldn't hold it in. Sitting by the fire, he confessed everything to Thomas. "I'm not from here," he whispered. "I come from a time far ahead, from 2025. Thomas laughed at first. You tell good stories. But Liam's face was grave. Slowly, Thomas's smile faded. You're serious? Liam nodded. I found a way back. In the tunnel. Thomas was silent for a long moment, then whispered, If you can go back, you must. You don't belong here. Liam's throat tightened. But you're my friend. I don't want to leave you. Thomas smiled sadly, his thin face glowing in the firelight. Friends don't hold each other back. Promise me, Liam, if you can go home, live. Live for both of us. The weight of that promise pressed deep into Liam's heart. When Liam finally told Mr. Whitaker, the teacher only nodded solemnly. If the Lord has given